Germany's military strategy during World War II relied heavily on the concept of Blitzkrieg, or lightning war. This required an unprecedented level of mechanization and a diverse range of specialized vehicles. The German Wehrmacht utilized everything from simple motorcycles to the heaviest tanks ever built. Their engineering was often advanced, but frequently suffered from overcomplexity. Light tanks. Panzerkampfwagen Y and II, the Panzer. I was originally designed as a training tank in the early 1930s. It was armed only with 2 machine guns and had very thin armor. Despite its limitations, it saw extensive action in Poland and France. It served as the foundation for future German armored tactics. The Panzer II was a slightly larger successor to the Panzer I. It featured a 20mm autocannon as its primary armament. It was intended to be a stopgap until heavier tanks were ready. However, it remained a mainstay of the Panzer divisions during the early war years. Medium tanks, Panzer III and IV. The Panzer III was designed as the primary anti-tank weapon of the German army. Early models carried a 37mm gun, which was later upgraded to a 50mm gun. It was highly effective in the early campaigns due to its 3-man turret. This allowed the commander to focus entirely on directing the battle. The Panzer IV became the most widely produced German tank of the entire war. It was originally intended for infantry support with a short 75mm gun. As the war progressed, it was upgunned with a long 75mm anti-tank gun. This allowed it to remain competitive against Soviet and Allied tanks until 1945. Heavy tanks, Panther and Tiger. The Panzer V. Panther is often considered one of the best tanks of the war. It was developed specifically to counter the Soviet T-34. It combined sloped armor, high speed, and a lethal 75mm long barrel gun. However, its early versions suffered from mechanical unreliability. The Tiger I is perhaps the most famous tank in military history. Its 88mm gun and 100mm of frontal armor made it a terrifying opponent. While nearly invincible from the front, it was expensive and difficult to maintain. Only about 1,350 units were ever produced. The Tiger II, also known as the King Tiger, was the ultimate development of German heavy tanks. It featured even thicker sloped armor and a more powerful 88mm gun. Its massive weight of nearly 70 tons caused frequent transmission failures. It was a formidable defensive weapon, but lacked strategic mobility. Assault guns and tank destroyers, StuG and Jagdpanther. The Sturmgeschütz III, StuG III, was Germany's most produced armored fighting vehicle. It lacked a rotating turret, which made it cheaper and faster to build. Originally meant for infantry support, it evolved into an excellent tank destroyer. It claimed more tank kills than any other German vehicle. The Jagdpanther Tier 4 was a dedicated tank destroyer based on the Panzer IV chassis. Its low profile made it very difficult for enemy gunners to hit. The Jagdpanther combined the Panther chassis with an 88mm gun. It is regarded by many as the finest tank destroyer of the conflict. The Jagdtiger was the heaviest armored vehicle to see combat during the war. It carried a massive 128mm gun capable of destroying any Allied tank at long range. Armored personnel carriers, SDKFZ 250 and 251. The SDKFZ 251 half-track was the workhorse of the Panzer Grenadiers. It allowed infantry to keep pace with the tanks while being protected from small arms fire. There were dozens of variants, including those armed with mortars or anti-tank guns. It was essential for coordinated tactical maneuvers. The SDKFZ 250 was a smaller version used primarily for scouting and command. It was more agile but carried fewer troops. Reconnaissance vehicles, SDKFZ 2131 and 2134, German reconnaissance relied on high-speed armored cars like the StuG II 8-rad. These vehicles had 8-wheel drive and could steer from both ends. The StuG 234 Puma was a later development with an 8-wheel chassis and a 50mm gun. It was exceptionally fast and well-armed for a scout car. Self-propelled artillery, Hummel, and Wespe. The Wespe Wasp carried a 105mm howitzer on a Panzer II chassis. It provided mobile fire support to the armored divisions. The Hummel, Bumblebee, used a 150mm howitzer on a combined Panzer III-4 chassis. It allowed heavy artillery to move as quickly as the frontline tanks. Wheeled logistics and utility vehicles. The Kübelwagen was the German equivalent of the Allied Jeep. It was based on the Volkswagen Beetle and was light and reliable. The Schwimmwagen was an amphibious version of the Kübelwagen. It featured a propeller at the rear for crossing rivers. Heavy transport was often handled by the Opel Blitz truck. This 3-ton truck was the backbone of German military logistics. The Mercedes-Benz L3000 was another common heavy truck used for supplies. Germany relied heavily on these wheeled vehicles for movement. Motorcycles, BMW and Zundap. The BMW R75 and Zundap KS 750 were heavy motorcycles often equipped with sidecars. They were used for dispatching messages and rapid scouting. Many were fitted with a powered sidecar wheel for better off-road performance. They were iconic symbols of the early German mobile forces. Super heavy projects, Maus. The Panzer VIII. Maus was a monstrous 188-ton tank project. Only 2 prototypes were partially completed before the war ended. It was intended to be a moving fortress that was impervious to any weapon. Its impracticality made it a symbol of late-war desperation. Summary of industrial effort. Germany produced a staggering variety of vehicles to meet every possible battlefield need. This variety often became a logistical nightmare for spare parts. Despite their technical brilliance, they could not match the sheer production numbers of the Allies. These vehicles remain a subject of intense study for historians today. Detailed listing of light armored cars. The SDKFZ 221 was a small 4-wheeled scout car. It was lightly armored and armed with a single machine gun. The SDKFZ 222 improved upon this by adding a 20mm cannon. It served as the eyes of the army in North Africa and Russia. Anti-aircraft vehicles, Flak Panzer. The Mobile Wagen was a self-propelled anti-aircraft gun based on the Panzer IV. It featured 4 20mm guns or one 37mm gun behind folding shields. The Whirlwind used a quadruple 20mm flak Vierling mount in an open-topped turret. It was highly effective against low-flying aircraft and ground targets. The Ostwind, East Wind, was the final evolution, carrying a single 37mm gun. It provided better protection for the crew during intense combat. Special purpose vehicles. The Kettenkrad was a unique half-track motorcycle. It was used to pull small loads and even aircraft like the Me-262. It excelled in muddy conditions where traditional motorcycles would get stuck. Its design was a hybrid of a bike and a tractor. Conclusion of German mechanized history. From the Blitz across Poland to the final defense of Berlin, these vehicles defined the era. German engineering created some of the most enduring icons of the 20th century. The legacy of these machines continues to fascinate and educate. Their complexity and power changed the face of modern warfare forever.